हेलो गाइस, कैसे आप सब लोग। आई होप सब बढ़िया होंगे। मैं सिर्फ सिद्धिकांत सिकवाल और मैं आप सभी का स्वागत करता हूँ हमारा अपना प्यारा सा चैनल SQLJ में इन दी सीरीज ऑफ NCERT लीडिंग लाइन बाय लाइन। और आज हम करने वाले हैं लोकोमोशन एंड मूवमेंट। तो चलिए गाइस शुरू करते हैं बिना किसी देरी के। मूवमेंट इज वन ऑफ द सिग्निफिकेंट फिगर feature of a living being. Animals and plants exhibit a wide range of movements stemming of protoplasm in the unicellular organisms like amoeba is a simple form of movement. Movement of cilia, flagella and tentacles are shown by many organisms. Human being can move limbs, jaws, eyelids, tongue, etc. Some of the movements result in the change of place or location. Such voluntary movements are called locomotion. Walking, learning, climbing, flying, and swimming are all some forms of locomotory movements. Locomotory structures need not to be different from those affecting other types of movements. For example, in paramecium, cilia helps in the movement of food through the cytophalanx and in locomotion as well. Hydra can use its tentacles for capturing its prey and also use them for locomotion. We use limbs for changes in the body posture and locomotion as well. The above observations suggest that movement and locomotions cannot be studied separately. The two may be linked by a stating that all locomotions are movement but all movements are not locomotions. Methods of locomotion performed by animals vary with their habitats and the demand of the situation. However, locomotion is generally for search of food, settlement, suitable breeding grounds, favorable climate conditions, or to escape from enemies and predators. 17.1 Types of movement. Cells of the human body exhibit three main types of movement, namely amoeboid, ciliary, and muscular movement. Some specialized cells in our body, like macrophages and leukocytes in the blood, exhibit amoeboid movement. It is affected by pseudopodia formed by the stemming of a protoplasm. As in amoeba, cytoskeletal elements like microfilaments are all involved in the amoeboid movement. Ciliary movements occur in most of our internal tubular organs which are lined by a ciliated epithelium. The coordinated movements of a cilia in the trachea help us in removing dust particles and some of the falling substances inhaled along with the atmospheric air. Passage of ova through the female reproductive tract is also facilitated by the ciliary movement. The movement of our limbs, jaws, tongue, etc. require a muscular movement. The contractile property of muscles are effectively used for locomotions and other movements by human being, and majority of multicellular organisms locomotions requires a perfect coordinated activity of a muscular, skeletal and neural systems. In this chapter you will learn about the types of muscles, their structures, mechanism of their contraction and important aspects of a skeletal system. 17.2 You muscles. You have studied in chapter 8 that sorry, cilia and flagella are the outgrowths of the cell membrane. Flagellar movement help in the swimming of a spermatozoa, maintenance of water current in the canal system of sponges, and in locomotion of protists like euglena. Muscle is a specialized tissue of a mesodermal origin that about 40 to 50% of the body weight of a human adult is contributed by muscles. They have special properties like excitability, contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Muscles have been classified using different criteria, namely location, appearance, and nature of regulation of their activities. Based on their locations, three types of muscles are identified, that is skeletal, second visceral, and third is cardiac. Skeletal muscles are closely associated with the skeletal components of the body. They have striped appearance under the microscope and hence are called striated muscles. As their activities are under the voluntary control of the nervous system, they are known as voluntary muscle too. They are primarily involved in the locomotory actions and changes of the body postures. Visceral muscles are located in the inner walls of the hollow visceral organs of the body like alimentary canal, reproductive tract, etc. They do not exhibit any striations and the smooth in appearance. Hence, they are called smooth muscles or non-striated muscles. The activities are not under the voluntary control of the nervous system and therefore known as involuntary muscles. They assist, for example, in the transportation of food through the digestive tract and gametes through the genital tract. As the name suggests, cardiac muscles are in the muscle of a heart. Many cardiac muscles cells assembles in a branching pattern to form a cardiac muscle. Based on appearance, cardiac muscles are striated. They are involuntary in nature or as the nervous system does not control their activities directly. Let us examine a skeletal muscle in detail to understand the structure and the mechanism of the contraction. Each organized skeletal muscle in our body is made up of number of muscle bundle or fascicles held together by a common collagenous connective tissue layer called fascia. Each muscle bundle contains a number of muscle fibers. Muscle, each muscle fiber is lined by a plasma membrane called sarcolemma. Enclosing the sarcoplasm, muscle fibers in a syncytium as the sarcoplasm contains many nuclei. The endoplasmic reticulum, that is sarcoplasmic reticulum of the muscle fibers, is the storehouse of calcium ions. A characteristic feature of a muscle fiber is the presence of a large number of parallelly arranged filaments in the sarcoplasm called myofilaments or myofibrils. Each myofibril has an alternate dark and light band on it. A detailed study of the myofibrils has established that the striated appearance is due to the distribution pattern of two important proteins, that is actin and myosin. The light bands contains actin and is called I band or isotopic band, whereas the dark band called A band or anisotropic band contains myosin. Both the proteins are arranged as a rod-like structures parallel to each other and also to the longitudinal axis of the myofibrils. Actin filament are thinner as compared to the myosin filament, hence are commonly called as thin and thick filament respectively. In the center of each eye band is an elastic fiber called Z-line which bisects it. The thin filament are firmly attached to the Z-line. The thick filament in the A band are also held together in the middle of this band by a thin fibrous membrane called M-line. The A and I bands are arranged alternately throughout the length of a myofibrils. The portion of the myofibril between two successive Z lines is considered as the functional unit of contraction and is called as sarcomere. In a resting state, the edges of a thin filament on either side of a thick filament partially overlap the free ends of the thick filament, leaving the central part of a thick filament. This central part of a thick filament not overlapped by a thin filament is called H-zone. 17.2.1 Structure of contractile proteins. Each actin, that is thin filament, is made up of two F, that is filamentous actins helically wound to each other. Each F actin is a polymer of a monomeric G, that is globular actins. Two filaments of another proteins, that is clopomyosin, also run close to the F actin throughout its length. The complex protein troponin is distributed at a regular intervals on the clopomyosin. In a resting state, a subunit of a troponin masks the active binding site for myosin on the actin filament. Each myosin, that is thick filament, is also a polymerized protein. Many monomeric proteins called melomyosin constitute one thick filament. Each melomyosin has two important parts, a globular head with a short arm and a tail. The former being called a heavy melomyosin HMM and latter the light melomyosin LMM. The HMM component, that is the head and the short arm, projected outward at a regular distance and an angle from each other from the surface of a polymerized myosin filament and is known as a cross arm. The globular head is an active site of active ATPase enzyme and has a binding site for ATP and active site for actin. 17.2.2 Mechanism of muscle contraction. Mechanism of muscle contraction is best explained by a sliding filament theory, which states that a contraction of a muscle fibers takes place by the sliding of a thin filament over the thick filament. Muscle contraction is initiated by a signal sent by a central nervous system, that is CNS, via a motor neuron. A motor neuron along with a muscle fibers connected to it constitute a motor unit. The junction between a motor neuron and the sarcolemma of the muscle fibers is called the neuromuscular junction or a motor end plate. A neural signals reaching this junction release a neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine, which generates an action potential in the sarcolemma. This spreads through the muscle fiber and causes the release of calcium ions into the sarcoplasm. Increase in the calcium 2 plus level leads to the binding of a calcium with a subunit of a troponin on the actin filament and thereby remove the masking of active sites for myosin. Utilizing the energy from ATP hydrolysis, the myosin head now binds to the exposed active site on actin to form a cross bridge. This pulls the attached actin filament towards the center of a band. The Z line attached to this actin are also pulled inwards, thereby causing a shortening of the sarcomere. That is a contraction. It is clear from the above steps that during a shortening of the muscle, that is a contraction, the I bands get reduced whereas A bands retain the length. The myosin releasing the ADP and P1 goes back to the relaxation state. A new ATP binds and a cross bridge is broken. The ATP is again hydrolyzed by the myosin head and the cycle of a cross bridge formation and breakage is repeated, causing a further sliding. The process continues till the calcium ions are pumped back to the sarcoplasmic cisternae, resulting in the maskings of actin filament. This causes the return of a Z lines back to their original position, that is relaxation. The reaction time of the fibers can vary in different muscles. Repeated activations of the muscle can lead to the accumulation of lactic acid due to anaerobic breakdown of glycogen in them, causing a fatigue. Muscle contraction is a lead-colored oxygen-storing pigment called myoglobin. Myoglobin content is high in some of the muscle, which gives a leadish appearance. Such muscles are called lead fibers. These muscles also contains a plenty of mitochondria, which can utilize a large amount of oxygen stored in them for ATP production. These muscles therefore can also be called aerobic muscles. On the other hand, some of the muscles possesses very less quantity of myoglobin and therefore appear pale or whitish. These are the white fibers. Number of mitochondria are also few in them, but the amount of sarcoplasmic reticulum is high. They depend on the anaerobic process for energy. 17.3 Skeletal system. Skeletal system consists of a framework of a bones and a few cartilages. This system has a significant role in the movement shown by the body. Imagine chewing food without jaws bone and walking around without the limb bone. Bone and cartilage are specialized connective tissue. The former has a very hard matrix due to calcium salt in it and the latter has a slightly pliable matrix due to the chondroitin salt. In human being, this system is made up of 206 bones and a few cartilages. It is grouped into two principal divisions, that is the axial and appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton comprises 80 bones distributed along with the main axis of the body. The skull, vertebral column, sternum and lips constitute axial skeleton. The skull composed of two sets of bones, that is cranial and facial, that, co- that totals to 22 bones. Cranial bones are 8 in number. They form a hard protective outer covering, cranium for the brain. The facial lesion is made up of 14 skeletal elements which form the front part of the skull. A single U-shaped bone called hyoid is present at the base of buccal cavity. Each middle ear contains three tiny bones, that is malleus, incus and stapes, collectively called as ear ossicles. The skull lesion articulates with the superior lesion of the vertebral column with the help of two occipital condyles, that is dicondylic skulls. Our vertebral column is formed of 26 ciliary arranged units called vertebrae and is dorsally placed. It extends from the base of the skull and constitutes the main framework of the trunk. Each vertebra has a central hollow portion, that is neural canal, through which the spinal cord passes. First vertebra is atlas and it articulates with the occipital condyle. The vertebral column is differentiated into seven cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, and one fused circle sacral and one fused coaxial. Lesions starting from the skull. The number of cervical vertebrae are 7 in almost all the mammals including human beings. The vertebral column protects the spinal cord, supports the head, and serves as a point of attachment for the lips and a musculature of a back. Sternum is a flat bone on the ventral midline of the thorax. There are 12 pairs of lips. Each lip is thin flat bone connected dorsally to the vertebral column and ventrally by the sternum. It has a two articulation surface on its dorsal end and is hence called bicephalic. First 7 pairs of lips are called true lips. Dorsally, they are attached to the thoracic vertebrae and ventrally connected to the sternum with the help of hyaline cartilage. The 8th, 9th, 10th pair of lips do not articulate directly with the sternum but join the 7 lips with the help of hyaline cartilage. These are called vertebrocondyle lips, that is false lips. Last two pairs, that is 11th and 12th pair of the lips, are not connected ventrally and therefore called floating lips. Thoracic vertebra, lips and sternum together form a lip cage. The bones of a limb along with their girders constitute the appendicular skeleton. Each limb is made up of 30 bones. The bones of the hand, 4 limbs are Humulus, radius, ulna, carpus that is wrist bone 8 in number, and metacarpus that is palm bone that is 5 in number, and phalanges that is digits 14 in number. Femur is a thigh bone is the longest bone. Tibia and fibula, tarsus that is ankle bone that is 7 in number, metatarsal 5 in number, and phalanges that is digits that is 14 in number are the bones of legs that is hind limb. A cup-shaped bone called patella cover a knee ventrically that is kneecap. Pectoral and pelvic girdle bone help in the articulation of upper and the lower limb respectively with the axial skeleton. Each girdle is formed of two halves. Each half of a pectoral girdle consists of a cervical and a scapula. Scapula is a large triangular flat bone situated in the dorsal part of the thorax between the second and seventh ribs. The dorsal flat triangular body of a scapula has a slightly elevated ridge called a spine which protrudes as a flat, expanded process called as acromion. The cervical articulates with this. Below the acromion is a depression called a glenoid cavity which articulates with the head of the humerus to form a shoulder joint. Each cervical is a long slender bone with the two curvatures. This bone is commonly called as collarbone. Pelvic girdle consists of two coxal bones, that is, each coxal bone is formed by the fusion of three bones, ilium, ischium, and pubis. At the point of fusion of the above bones is a cavity called as acetubulum to which is a thigh bone articulates. The two halves of a pelvic girdle meet ventrally to form a pubis symphysis containing fibrous cartilage. 17.4 Joints. Joints are essentially for all types of movement involving in the body parts of the body. Locomotive movements are no exception to these joints. Joints are points to contact between the bones and cartilage. Force generated by a muscle is used to carry out movement. Throughout joints, where the joints act as a fasciculum, the movability as these joints vary depending on the different factors. The joints have been classified into three major structures form, namely fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial. Fibrous joints do not allow any movement. This type of a joint is shown by a flat skull bones which is fused end to end with the help of dense fibrous connective tissue in the form of sutures to form a cranium. In cartilaginous joint, the bones involved are joined together with the help of cartilages. The joint between the adjacent vertebrae in the vertebral column is this pattern and it permits limited movement. Synovial joints are characterized by the presence of a fluid-filled synovial cavity between the articulate surfaces of the two bones. Such an arrangement allows a considerable movement. These joints help in the locomotion and many other movements. Ball and socket joint between humerus and pectoral girdle, hinge joint that is knee joint, pivot joint that is between atlas and axis, grid, gliding joint that is between carpus, saddle joint between carpus and metacarpus of thumb are some examples. 17.5 Disorders of muscles. Disorders of muscular and skeletal system. First, myasthenia gravis, that is autoimmune disorder affecting a neuromuscular junction leading to a fatigue, weakening and a paralysis of a skeletal muscle. Second, muscular dystrophy, degeneration of a skeletal muscle mostly due to genetic disorder. Tetany, rapid spasm, that is wild contraction in muscle due to low calcium in body fluid. Fourth, arthritis, inflammation of joints. Fifth, osteoporosis, that is age-related disorder characterized by the decreased bone mass and increased chances of fractures. A decreased level of estrogen in a common cause. Then gout, that is inflammation of the joints due to accumulation of uric acid crystals. Then last summary, movement is an essential feature of all living beings. Protoplasmic, slimming, ciliary movements, movements of fins, limbs, wings, etc. are some forms exhibited by animals. A voluntary movement which causes the animal to change its place is called a locomotion. Animal moves generally in search of food, shelter, mate, breeding ground, better climate to protect themselves. The cells of a human body exhibit amoeboid, ciliary, and muscular movements. Locomotion and many other movements requires a coordinated muscular activities. There are three types of muscles are present in our body, that is skeletal muscles are attached to the skeletal elements, they appear slighted and the voluntary nature. Then visceral muscles are present in the inner walls of visceral organs are non-slighted and involuntary, and then cardiac muscles are the muscles of the heart, they are slighted, blanched and involuntary. Muscle possesses excitability, contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Muscle fibers is a autonomical unit muscle fiber is an anatomical unit of muscles. Each muscle fiber has a many parallelly arranged myofibrils. Each myofibril contains a many serially arranged units called a sarcomere, which are the functional units. Each sarcomere has a central A band made up of thin myosin filament and two half I bands made up of a thin actin filament on either side of the marked by Z lines. Actin and myosin are polymerized protein with contractility. The active sites for the myosin on a lasting action filaments are masked by a troponin. Myosin head contains ATPase and has a binding sites of active sites for actin. A motor neuron carries a signals to the muscle fibers, which generates an action potential in it. This causes the release of calcium ions from sarcoplasmic reticulum. Calcium ions activates a calcium ion activates actin, which binds to the myosin head to form a cross bridge. These cross bridges pull the actin filament, causing them to slide over the myosin filament and thereby causing contraction. Calcium ions are then returned to sarcoplasmic reticulum, which inactivate the actin. Cross bridges are broken and the muscle relax. Repeated stimulations of a muscle lead to the fatigue. Muscles are classified as a red and white fibers based on primarily on the amount of a red-colored myoglobin present in them. Bones and cartilage constitute our skeletal system. The skeletal system is divisible into axial and appendicular. Skull, vertebral column, lips and sternum constitute axial skeleton. Limb bone and girdles form the appendicular skeleton. Three types of joint formed between bones and between bone and cartilage, that is fibrous, cartilaginous and synovial. Synovial joints allow considerable movement and therefore play a significant role in locomotion. We complete the chapter, that is locomotion and movement, and before this chapter, we completed breathing and exchange of gases, body fluids and circulation, and excretory products and their एलिमिनेशन। तो जिन्होंने भी वो चैप्टर नहीं देखे हैं एक बार जाके देख लो, आपको हेल्प मिलेगी। और सॉरी मैं कल लेक्चर नहीं डाल पाया था, मैं कल वीडियो नहीं रिकॉर्ड कर पाया था क्योंकि मेरी तबीयत खराब थी। आज भी आपको थोड़ा सा गला मेरा खराब दिखा होगा। सो थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग दिस वीडियो। कमेंट में बताना कैसे लगा और मैं अपने आप में क्या इम्प्रूव कर सकता हूँ। सॉरी फॉर वॉचिंग, थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग।